Welcome, everyone. My guest today is Paul Gigliotti, the new CEO of the California MBA, to talk about affordability, AI, and other priorities as he takes over this new role in serving the mortgage lenders of California. First, I want to thank our sponsor, Trust and Will, for making this episode possible. Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's so great to be here, Sarah.
It is great to be here and part of your big announcement at California MBA about the leadership change that's happening after a couple of decades. So, first of all, congratulations to you for taking over this role.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm really excited. There's so much opportunity and so much available to do and work, and the team and the board of directors and the industry. It's just, it's going to be great.
Yeah, so let's dive in there a little bit. So Susan Milazzo has been at the California MBA for 25 years total, 22 as CEO. Just an incredible legacy there of building up that association and all the changes that have happened in those 25 years. So maybe from your perspective, let's start there and go, what do you feel like, what legacy is she leaving behind?
That's a great question. And we could take this entire chat to talk about the legacy that Susan Milazzo is leaving behind. She has created, a really strong sense of community in the industry. She's bridged that community both on the commercial and residential side. So the California MBA services both commercial and residential. And the work that Susan has brought to the industry as a whole regarding advocacy and legislation, I think is what it sits top of mind for me. And the reason why it's been so impactful, I feel, is oftentimes California, the state of California, leads charge. And what occurs in the state of California then very easily moves up into the federal level. Because of the advocacy work that Susan has created at the California MBA, she's also created really close ties with the National MBA. Great partnership between California MBA and the National MBA, as well as the other state MBA associations. But, her legacy that she's left behind definitely, starts with advocacy and legislation. That's where her background was prior to coming to California MBA. So she had that inherent skill set already within her. On top of that, Susan has created a great opportunity for networking and collaboration, as HousingWire knows, through our very robust events that the California MBA hosts, Mortgage Innovators Conference, Western Secondary, and then, of course, our legislation conference that we hold in February. All of which provided a great platform for lenders to connect with other lenders to connect with investors, warehouse facilities, different technology that's out there to support lenders to grow within the industry. So those are some of the top points that I feel when we talk about the legacy of Susan Milazzo and what she's done for the California MBA. Those are top of mind for me.
It's really an incredible run of leadership. We don't see that kind of multi-decade leadership too often, just because mortgage markets change, people's lives change. So it is really stellar. Would love to know from your perspective, like, what are you bringing as you step into this role? What is your vision and how might it be different, or do you feel like you are building on top of that?
Well, it's different, but I also feel like I'm building on top of it. So as we were chatting, our backgrounds are really diverse, Susan and myself. So there's a different perspective that will be brought from me. I bring 20 years plus experience leading mortgage lenders, driving innovation through technology. I have built lending platforms. I've streamlined process. And I've grown organizations like Pinnacle Home Loans, Access Lending Academy, while also helping mortgage technology companies scale. Most recently with Prudent AI, I've been at the forefront of integrating AI technology into lending. So I think that experience combined with my service as a California MBA board member gives me this really unique perspective. I understand the challenges of lenders. I often can immediately place myself back in the seat of being a COO, or even when I started in the mortgage lending industry as an originator. The innovation of solution providers, I've touched on that as well. And while being associated with the California MBA, the importance of strong advocacy. And so my goal is to unify those perspectives to strengthen the community of the California MBA and the positioning of the California MBA as a trusted voice for our industry. To be honest with you, agnostic of state, right? So I really want to support our industry in understanding, where certain aspects of the mortgage lending industry that really affect the lender, right? And then therefore the consumer, because ultimately the California MBA as an association is there to support the mortgage lending industry, the lenders in the community, so that they can go and better serve the consumer, the end user of the product.
So, I mean, it's not, obviously you've been on the board, you've been in leadership at California MBA. So it's not brand new to you, but I do think it's so interesting now for you to take this role, given your background in technology and specifically AI and just the moment that we are in, that mortgage lenders really have an incredible opportunity, but also if they don't embrace it, I mean, this could be a game changer in a bad way.
It's fascinating. There are so many aspects to it, or facets to it, Sarah, when you look at bringing in technology and embracing technology, really in any industry, but obviously specific lending, residential and commercial. The need for adoption is there. It just runs deep, right? And I would really start with the need for adoption to technology, specifically AI, is for the consumer. We're in an age of the consumer's demanding. They know what they want and they want it now. And in order to provide them that at scalability, the adoption of AI, has to be there for organizations, specifically lenders, but also additional technology providers. I'm sure HousingWire, as a support mechanism to the residential real estate housing market, you've got AI all over the place at HousingWire. It helps you with your data. It helps you with your data analysis. And so it really is something that what we strive, or what we'll strive to do at the California MBA, is have solutions and education at your fingertips, of course, using AI, so that we can ensure that it's accessible and it's understood in a very easy manner.
What do you think, taking a step back, what do you think the biggest challenge is for mortgage lenders in California right now?
Wow. I think there's a handful of challenges for mortgage lenders, specifically in the state of California, but industry wide. We can start with some things that have been kind of noodling around for a while. We can look at housing affordability, inventory, specifically in California, and affordability in California. There's a strong segment of the population in California that are in the service industries, right? Or that are in gig economy. They need to live somewhere. And we're quickly running short of inventory. According to NAR, inventory remains near historic lows, and Freddie Mac estimates a national housing shortage of 3.8 million units. Now that is, in a specific area, but this isn't just market issues, right? So we'll talk about market issues. We have a community issue in the state of California. Obviously, market issues play into affordability. Everybody's talking about the cost of living is rapidly increasing inflation. And then we've got some, very unique to California. We've got some issues with insurance, which is, I know HousingWire is very aware of that. And we've got a lot of, we're moving through some regulatory issues as well. And so the California MBA will remain steadfast at supporting the legislators in the state of California in really understanding how some of these bills that are sitting on their desk affect lenders, affect the lender's ability to do what it is that they're supposed to do, and that's serve the consumer. And some of that is related to AI and technology, and how legislators are looking at AI and what AI should and shouldn't be doing. So we're at the forefront of that. We have been at the forefront of the insurance crisis. So those are some of the things that are top of mind to the California MBA as an association to continue to push forward and provide that advocacy, but also that education piece as to what's really going on and how is that really going to affect you as a mortgage lender or a solution provide, and then therefore what's the chain reaction to the consumer.
So on the insurance front, is there anything there that you're like, well, you know what, this is a positive or this is a win that we've had? Because it can feel like it's just an intractable problem.
Yeah, I we are still knee deep in the insurance crisis. We've had some wins as a state. What's really interesting is now watching it kind of spread through to other states. Now it's becoming a great issue in Florida. So the more populated states, the crisis is occurring, and everybody could raise their hand and say why. I think what our focus is how to support the lenders in understanding why it's occurring and to better educate the consumer. So there have been some wins. I think what's occurring right now is we're looking for the insurance rates to have a baseline, if you will, right? And so when the insurance rates have a baseline, different insurance companies are coming to market. So I think that there'll be some adjustment to the insurance crisis, meaning that it will start to level out a little bit. So it'll become less of a crisis, and there'll be education around why it has occurred and what, most importantly, from my perspective, what's happening so something like that doesn't occur again. And hopefully, what will happen is other states will take note to this crisis and they can get in front of the ball to ensure that it doesn't happen in their area.
I feel like in every state that's really affected by this, and of course, what state does not have some sort of natural disaster, crisis looming? I'm in Texas. We just had a whole bunch of hail in September. That's completely not normal. Of course, we
Yeah.
have coastline as well, so we might have hurricanes, we have tornadoes, we have all sorts of things. But when you think about the states that have California, Florida being the two big ones, that have just I mean, you have all that coastline for one thing. You're a giant state, so a lot of things happen. You have all these things. Do you feel like eventually, like, this has to be a federally addressed issue more than it currently is?
I don't know if it has to. That's a really interesting question. And I'll preface my response to that is, I'm quickly getting my training wheels off on the legislative and advocacy side of the California MBA association, right? As we were discussing, I'm planted firmly with mortgage lending from origination to operations to mortgage-backed securities, as well as technology. From my perspective, what I would say is, again, California is looked at often, for how they're moving through, certain legislative initiatives, and one of them being the insurance crisis, and another one very top of mind is technology. And what is AI, and what should AI do, or what role should AI play in the approval of a consumer getting a residential mortgage loan? So to answer your question, I think it's really important for states to provide data, information, and analysis of what is best for their state and to collaborate with the federal government. I personally don't know if the best result would be to have a federal hand playing in something like insurance or technology or the Community Reinvestment Act. CRA is another bill that's going to come up for conversation in 26, because they don't have a focal. They're not on in that specific state.
Right.
Right. They see the data and they hear what's going on, but they're not there. Definitely support, is going to be needed. But to answer your question, I'm not sure if it would bring much help to have it regulated by the federal government. I don't know the answer to that.
And I think that that is a very tough question. So thanks for answering on day one, literally, of being in this job. And I think it goes to, the way that so many things are organized in our society, right? If you think about education, like there's a federal part of that, but it's still mostly local control, how you pay for education, what that looks like. And I feel like housing, obviously, even more so, local zoning laws, challenges, all that. So maybe that's not the way it's going to go, but it is definitely going to be the conversation going forward is like, how do we solve this crisis, not just for California, but people everywhere, right? That
Yeah.
is one of the things that people have talked about. We can, mortgage rates are absolutely a part of the affordability, equation, but it's not the only part that people are struggling with.
No, not at all. I mean, it all, when you sit back and start to kind of peel the onion, there are so many parts that make housing affordable. Property tax, my property taxes just went up, insurance. And then we can even pick apart some of the smaller things, maintenance. I swear to God, I had plumbing done in my home, not to get off track. But I saw the plumbing bill and I was kind of scratching my head with my husband for quite a bit. And I sat back and thought, how is this possible? Like, this is more than the mortgage payment. It doesn't seem to be that big of a part of the plumbing system, if you will, right? So, affordability it's a very large topic of conversation. I think, yes, rates do play into it. But I think there are so many other aspects. To your point, insurance, what taxes are looking like, upkeep on a home, what you do once you get in the home. And then you obviously have to look at inflation and cost of living just seeming to me to be skyrocketing. And so what does that do to affordable housing, right? So it's not
Yeah.
just the rate and payment itself. And those are conversations that, I remember from my lending days that I would have with um, consumers. Yeah, you can qualify for this mortgage, but I'm not. I heard you say you send your child to private school, and I'm not taking that into consideration. You've got an additional $1,500 that you're paying. So, are you comfortable with that? Have you factored that into your expense? Well, that was a long time ago. I know I look like I'm 25, but costs have gone up so much. So that $1,500 private school tuition is probably now $7,000. So what does that do to being able to afford the home? So to me, it is an onion. We've got some movement with rates, as we all know, and we've seen, but really, how much is that going to support affordable housing?
I think that's such a great point. I was actually talking to a coworker of mine who lives in Colorado, who is paying $3,500 a month for daycare. $3,500 a month. That's not private school. That's not like getting you ready for your SATs. That is simply daycare. And I think
Yeah.
that when all those other costs rise, and as they have, it does put strain. And even when you're looking at, ability to repay, or your debt to income ratio, those are great. But they don't always factor in all of the kind of things you and I are talking about right now.
Yeah, yeah. So, a full time IMB mortgage banker executive might listen to this conversation and no, affordable housing is really, what does that house cost and the rate? But there are factors that play into that, right? And so, one of the things that we want to do at California MBA is bring that forward as educational material to our lenders, our members on both on the commercial and residential side, because it affects commercial lending as well, right? And the solution providers that support that industry, having those conversations about affordability and how to maneuver through that. And then obviously being that voice that goes to legislation for our industry and for the consumer.
You mentioned several times that, what happens in California often spreads to the rest of the country, in housing and other things. And right now, especially, we've seen the federal government pull back a ton on regulation, financial regulation, right? I think about the CFPB, which is a shell of its former self. Of course, there's look back periods. There's all these things that mortgage lenders have to think about. But one of the things that always comes up when we talk about the federal government stepping back is the state government stepping up to the plate. And New York and California are two states who sort of pride themselves on, listen, we're going to make sure that there are lots of regulations in place to keep things safe. What are you seeing right now in California? Is that office, I know NYDFS, I'm trying to think what the California office is. the similar thing. But what is that office doing right now? Have you seen them kind of step up enforcement or putting out guidelines or anything?
Yeah, so the DFPI, the California MBA, has a really a great relationship with the DFPI. There's a lot of communication back and forth, a lot of transparency. We bring to the in fact, we just had, I want to say about 3 weeks ago, we had a roundtable with the DFPI. The California MBA supported this roundtable. We had a ton of lenders, which happened to be members of the California MBA. RWM was there, APM was there, just a litany of lenders. And we were talking to the DFPI about, what does the regulatory landscape look like? What do you plan on doing this year? What do audits look like? What do fees look like? What are you looking for us to support you? And it was a very open, it to me, again, I came from the lending world. So when the DFPI knocked on my door, it was always like, you were throwing a surprise party. Okay, everybody be quiet, hide under your desk. You don't want to answer the door. It was a different landscape. It was fantastic to have this very open dialogue of, this is what the DFPI needs to do in order to continue supporting our industry, and that, what's being done right for the consumer. It was enlightening, and I was really thrilled to be a part of just listening in on the conversation. I didn't say too much. The announcement hadn't come out. And again, I'm still getting my training wheels off in that advocacy and legislative, side of the world. DPI is also compliance, but it plays a big role in what is required of an IMB, a mortgage lender, and so I think what's happening is state regulators are marching forward with, ensuring that the consumer is being dealt with in a fair manner. And that's why I brought up, I believe CRA is going to be another big topic of conversation starting next year, Community Reinvestment Act. And so we'll probably be looking at that again. California is blessed, though, the state of California, with the DFPI and the relationship that the California MBA does have with them. Again, it's very transparent. It's very open as much as it can be. And so we get to share a lot of those insights with our members and our lenders and solution providers.
I think part of being in a democracy is, right, there's lots of great things about it. It can often feel like, do the people who are making the decisions, do they understand my point of view? Do they understand the consequences of what they do? And so this kind of relationship, like you're saying, where you actually have a good relationship with the state regulators and they sit down and listen to you and you've been heard. It's kind of hard to put a price tag on that from my perspective. I used to own a small business in Texas, and to feel like the people who are making the rules are hearing the voice of the people that are going to be affected by those rules in very specific ways is just incredibly important.
Yeah, it is. And I will tell you, it's really inspiring, Sarah. And hopefully maybe we could have someone from HousingWire come join us. At Legislation Day, you get to walk into the office and you have the ear of the individual that can go to bat for you. And the reason why you have that ear is they want to be educated. They don't understand. They don't understand the importance of having artificial intelligence support the underwriting process. From the top of mind, they think that's going to cause bias because they're just looking at data. They don't understand how it actually provides the ability for a mortgage lender to be able to look at who is this consumer and what loan product works best for them, and to be able to have the file move through in a more seamless manner. And so when we get to talk to them about it and we get to explain what that really means from the perspective of a mortgage lender or from the perspective of a solution provider that uses AI, they listen and they take that commentary forward. Oftentimes in those meetings, business cards are exchanged. Additional information is provided outside of the legislation day. So we talk about democracy, and it's still there, and it still works. The California MBA has been instrumental in ensuring that some of the legislative initiatives that are on table don't move forward because they're not good for the consumer. It doesn't provide equality for the consumer in home ownership or whatever the case may be. But it is empowering and impactful to be involved in an organization that provides that level of support to the industry. And that was one of the reasons why, going through the courtship of, is this position right for me? Am I right for this position? I still get the chills when I think about how impactful we are as an association to mortgage lending in the state and nationwide. And I get to support that with the robust board of directors and all of our members. And we get to continue to push that forward. That's a dream job.
I can totally see why you're very suited to this role at this time, right? I mean, it's the coming together of many things. What do you think mortgage lenders in California specifically struggle with when it comes to AI? Is it just the rate of the pace of change? Is it the cost? Is it the understanding how it's really going to help them? Like, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges there?
That's a great question. So when we talk about mortgage lending and technology and I think there's a couple of things. There's fear factor. Everybody hears AI out there and they think, oh my gosh, there's a robot that's doing this job now. And that's super not cool because what's going to happen to my staff? And is that robot going to understand my guides and how we work and operate? So there's a little bit of fear. I think a subcategory to that fear is it going to be, what is adoption going to look like? And then, I hate to say this, and this is agnostic of state or not, but I think then comes into play, a lot of solution providers will tout and shout AI, but it isn't necessarily AI. So the technologies can be somewhat similar. So I would think that from a lender's perspective, why AI? Why should I do this? Is this right for my business? I think those are some of the things that go through the lender's mind when they start looking for technology and solution provide, and they're focusing on AI.
It makes a lot of sense, and I feel like what you guys are doing as an organization, first of all, a giant organization for a giant state, and just a lot of depth of expertise in your leadership, you particularly, but also on the board. I went out to your event last year and just was very impressed with who was sitting around the table, who is representing the mortgage lenders of California. It's pretty impressive. And I feel like it's more important than ever right now because, I mean, there's a lot going on. There's the affordability pressure. There's, a pretty great amount of change coming from in the regulatory compliance
Mhm.
area and knowing, okay, what do I need to really be focused on? At the same time, there's like this AI opportunity and also just, the consumer out there is still waiting to be served. So I feel like
Yeah.
it's a pretty complex thing.
Yeah, it is a complex thing. And you touched on something really important. I will say it's where the California MBA has the most robust team I have ever participated with. Our board of directors, the level of intelligence, understanding, dedication, and experience just blows my mind. Who is part of our team? Not to mention, our staff, small and mighty, and can create miracles and make things really happen. And that's what it takes, really, to drive for an organization, as you know. Same with HousingWire, right? Um, we are at this pivotal time in our industry. And that's really, I think, what gets me most excited and what I'm most passionate about. There is so much opportunity. And from my perspective, it is literally knocking on our door and it's waiting for us as an industry to open the door. And I know in every, from the depths of my soul that the California MBA can support, if you will, to that analogy, opening up that door for our members so that they can better support the consumer. And in the way that the consumer is kind of wanting. Again, we had talked about the consumer, it's a demand generation. They want their answer now. They don't want to wait for someone to look at something with their eyes. They don't want to wait 2 weeks. They want to know, can I buy this home? Can I do this refi so I can pay for child's college or stash up for that expensive daycare that we were just talking about? And so the opportunity is there. The opportunity is real. We're in changing times from a legislative political perspective, but I also think there's opportunity within that, and that's part of the reason why this this function, this position is so exciting to me.
One thing I wanted to maybe dive a little bit deeper into. So we had our AI summit, as I said, and one of the things there that's so interesting is like trying to figure out who's actually doing something interesting or even AI, because there's a lot of things out there that's like it looks like AI, but if you scratch the surface, it's actually maybe it's not, or it's something that's been around for quite a long time that's being repackaged,
Yeah.
and you just hate to see people paying for something that is like some people in a position would know that like that's not actually that innovative, or it's not really going to solve the problem like some other things are. So when we're doing the AI summit, we're really trying to vet everybody that we're asking to speak and that we're spotlighting, because we're like, we want to make sure that those are people that are truly have something to say to the audience and are doing. So I feel like that's something that you sort of alluded to here, was like you guys are helping lenders with that problem. Maybe you can tell us more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you say that, Sarah, because when you look at solution providers and what are they and what are they providing, and it's not always is that technology really state of art or truly innovative. It's also, is it a right fit for X lender? Like,
Hmm.
we sit back and we know there are lenders that do non-QM or non-agency. There are lenders that do agency. There are lenders that are wholesale lenders. There are lenders that are retail lenders, and there is specific solutions, AI or OCR, for those business channels, if you will. One of the things that I'm working with really closely with the board of directors at the California MBA staff, and of course Susan, because we're lucky enough to be able to keep her around for a little bit longer, is how to create a way for accessibility to our members of information and data. So before, we were talking about the consumer as a demand consumer. Well, the people that run IMBs and the people that run the solution providers organizations are that consumer, and you want everything immediately. You want things now. And so the California MBA is really doing a deep dive and trying to figure out how can we provide information, data, and knowledge so it's at the fingertips of our members, so they can access, here's this legislative initiative. Not only is here's this legislative initiative, not only how does it directly impact me as an IMB and how will it directly impact the consumer, but I want to know about it right now and at the right time. And the same thing is with technology. So let's look at technology for a quick second. Our market's going to have a slight shift. We don't know for how long, but we're going to move out of the purchase market, which is what everybody was living off of, and we're going to move into a refi market, right? Rates are going to start to dip. It's going to be the refi boom. We have an all-time equity position for our homeowners. And so how do we support the IMBs, the lending community within the California MBA, to understand what technology is best for that? What can they plug in really quickly? And it might be some type of CRM or database management solution, but what can they plug in really quickly to help them right now? So that's one of our biggest initiatives that I'm really looking forward to, is being a little bit of an innovative geek in supporting our community as the California MBA is providing this additional support mechanism, and we're expanding our community. We want to make sure that we're helping our community stay on the pulse and have that information immediately.
I love that. Super important. And that brings me to my next question, which is how do people get in touch with the California MBA if they haven't before really taken advantage of talking to you guys, being connected? What does that look like?
Jump on our website. We are on it with our communication. We've got a stellar team. We're always looking to support our members and prospect members. As soon as somebody clicks, they want more information. Chris, who's our director of membership engagement, immediately reaches out to them, and we jump on a call and walk them through, what is it that you're looking for? Where do you need support? Well, this is how the California MBA can support you. So jump on our website, follow us on LinkedIn. We're there to support the industry, as you know, and we do look forward to hearing from you.
Perfect, Paul. Thank you so much.
Thank you.